Today we are joining in for another session of the Beyond Consulting podcast, and it's my absolute pleasure today to speak with Andres Pedrera. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. The rolling R is always a bit difficult for me.
It's good. It's more than good. It's more than good.
And Andres, you're joining us from Madrid today, or from where are you joining in?
Yeah, I'm joining from Madrid.
And Andres is a Chief Technology Officer at HOLA. HOLA is a leading Spanish editorial group with more than 60 years of history and operations in more than 30 countries and millions of users worldwide. So once again, welcome to the show. I hope I introduced you correctly. Anything that you want to add?
Fair enough. Fair enough. I would say it's not well. Hola, it's our main brand for the Spanish-speaking countries, but in the rest of in the English-speaking countries or other languages, is Hello Magazine the main brand. Despite we also have secondary brands for children or travel or fashion or other minor brands, so to speak. And so we operate directly 6 countries, and then we have a franchising system for other countries where third parties operate our brands, but they operate them autonomously. So we are basically operating directly in the States, the UK, Mexico, Spain, and Canada. The rest of the countries, despite we have also all Americas, for example, which is a broader brand for Latin America too. So we are kind of spread, yes. It all started in Spain, and it's a Spanish company. It started in 1944, and we try to keep things bright and nice for the world.
Yeah, and obviously it's across so many time zones, probably it never sleeps. There's always someone busy, and that relates a lot to consultants, of course, that are also very busy all the time. But today we're not going to talk so much about the consulting topics, but I think we have a very special session about from the CTO's perspective on leadership and transformation. And we're also going to dive into some thing that might some people call attachment, but let's get there when we get there. So before, maybe let's speak a bit about your career, Andres. You have been more than 5 times in CTO roles. What fascinates you about the CTO role, and how did you come to?
Yeah, actually, I started. It's sometimes it's tough to admit that you have 30 years of experience on your back, right? Started very early in the internet in 1995. Actually, I was already creating web pages when internet was something very kind of obscure, and you could not tell everybody that you were doing things on the internet, because internet, according to media, was something very dark and for drug dealing and these kind of things. And yeah, so I started a company for creating internet services in the 90s. Eventually, with a friend of mine, eventually we sold the company to a telco in Spain to join a bigger project. And then since that moment, I've been in the role of managing people from the technical background, right? So either if it's development or sysadmin. So yeah, so for the last, let's say, 20 years, I've been 100% managing people and managing IT departments in different industries, online travel agencies, telco, and in the last 15 years or so, media companies. I was the technical director for the Spanish national TV, for the internet and interactive media. And then eventually I came to HOLA also for developing this role as a CIO, despite it was CIO and CTO to be kind of more accurate. And along these years, let's say that I brought into when you grow all older, you evolve, and you incorporate in your life different tools to make that makes you more resilient. This is a tough kind of role, and eventually so how do you want me to continue? Should we go into
how's it for me? Is it like the fascination also? Like you have this great thing where you started off building websites in the very early days of the internet. So it's driving you towards CEO. Is it the fascination for technology?
I was all
going, or what is it?
absolutely. I was always I felt very attracted to technology since I was little. And so when I discovered the internet, it was clear for me that putting things together and putting people together and disintermediating, because you had a lot of third party there. When you're able to put together people directly, they can do amazing things, right? Sometimes you even say, "Oh, I contributed personally to create this kind of messy thing that we have now with the internet, with social network, with everybody is kind of their brains are fried with so many inputs and so on, and it's kind of somehow I regret that I participated very actively in creating all of this, but at the same time, it gives us amazing things in the world, and now knowledge is at hand for everyone in the world, and it's an amazing thing, right? So yes, I was very very keen to technology and innovation since I was little. I was never afraid of change, and for me that is an important concept, because this concept of non-attachment, this non-attachment thing comes from the Buddhism and Oriental philosophies. That basically, and Buddhism identifies many things. It's a toolbox. I used to say it's not a religion. I'm not a Buddhist anyway, but I just try to pick interesting things from different areas of expertise. And Buddhism is more like a toolbox to guide you through life, to explain, look, this is why you're suffering. If you want to stop suffering, these are the tools for that, right? And one of the origins of suffering, according to Buddhism, is the attachment. The fact that you get too attached to things or ideas also. And that creates a huge amount of suffering. And in my life, I have been incorporating all of this, and it's true that the more you attach to things, the more you suffer, and the easier you let go, the easier you find other doors that probably are more useful. And I try to apply, for example, this in my personal life, and also eventually you bring this to the work environment too, right? So that.
And if you think about being a leader, what is your perspective on leadership plus attachment? So if I put it, you've just talked about that you've been multiple times CTO. Are you very attached to the CTO role? What is the concept behind the attachment thing and leadership?
For me, it all makes sense when you think that life is a constantly evolving thing, and everything evolves. If you get stuck in how things are now, and that is attached to what is at this moment, or how you see it at this moment, then you are preventing yourself from evolving. And so the role, for example, of a CTO and CIO, now I'm officially in the role of CIO, it's an evolving thing. So, for example, those times when IT stuff were done only by the IT guys, it's no longer a reality. Actually, the many people is prone to name things that this is a technical thing. No, that is not a technical thing. That is kind of a digital thing, and it's not only within the realm of the IT guys. Everybody should. It's kind of digital literacy. So the role of the CIO, as I see it, is kind of blurred and constantly evolving. And so so I see my role more as a tool for my team. I try to normally I tell them, I'm the one. So if you have a rock in the road, I'm the one. So tell me, I will be with the hammer there, breaking the rock, so you can continue. So I try to make them see me as a tool for them, and I try to align efforts to understand what the company wants to do and try to align effort in the same direction. Normally, as in my experience, only that is enough to make a lot of things done. So if just understanding and putting everybody pushing in the same direction. So that's how I see it. I try, of course, you need to understand the background of what is happening technically, but you're managing people in most of cases and aligning efforts and making all share the same goals and keeping and evolving open-minded. It's how I see it.
Now you mentioned in the beginning your operations are very global. You operate in a lot of countries. How do you balance that? You say, okay, well, here's the hammer. We're gonna solve this way, yeah? Or maybe a regionalization where everyone basically says how they want it. I could imagine it's maybe like the constant thing that you face in a digital IT role. Yeah. You have the requirements from your end, but the business has the requirements, but you are central and they are local. How do you balance that execution of a digital roadmap best?
I don't know if I have a clear answer to that question because I guess finding a balance between, first of all, if you have different markets and different countries, you have different cultures, and different cultures may approach the same problem with different in a different way, right? So for me, in general, it's all in our case, and sometimes the operation is more local than I would like to, but figuring out. Let's see if I can answer this properly. So for me, the key thing is figuring out what is the size of the bite that you may take at every moment. So because, for example, in this case, in my company now, we historically despite we were in different countries, the operations were pretty local. But what now reality is demanding is that we are more efficient, and to be more efficient, if you globalize some things for economies of scale, you can be more efficient, right? But that takes time because operations and culture is something that has a lot of inertia, doesn't change very fast. So figuring out what is the proper size of a step at each moment is how to try to deal with this. Because if you try to bite a bigger bigger thing that you can chew and swallow, then eventually you cannot make it happen. So, and if you take too little steps, you don't go as fast as you could as a company. So for me, that's how I try to figure out in each case what is the proper balance between size and speed.
And you mentioned culture. What is the culture, or the how you describe the perfect culture that brings the fastest results from a CTO perspective?
The fastest, sorry?
The fastest results. So when you say, okay, we need to, move on, but there's only so many things that probably can do at a certain time. Otherwise, there is too much inertia and people will not buy into the transformation. What type of culture you would, from a CTO perspective, love to have everywhere so you get the quickest results through?
Yeah, well, in my case, what I appreciate more is it's an open sharing information culture. So when you share information,
What does it mean?
that means that if everybody knows the goals and know why those goals are there, and the operational information regarding how we work is there, so that is one aspect. Then the other aspect is the willingness to change. So if those components are in the culture, I think you get most of the ingredients for a good outcome. Of course, it's not. It's probably it's not enough. But those two for me are key. So for example, when I was in the TV as a director of technology, what I used to conduct once a year was making this group dynamics with all the management that I used to lead. So I lead this group dynamics where we put on the table all the projects that everybody wanted to um, to get that year, right? And then we discussed them, and I organized these dynamics on a divergence and then convergence way, that eventually we end up with specific projects to tackle that year, right? And it was the result of everybody putting and cooperating together and in the management level. So after that, everybody knew what we were working on and why those projects and not others, right? And then I created a huge panel on the wall with all the projects on all kind of with one column, kind of a Kanban thing. Not a Kanban, it's more a Gantt, I would say, with all the projects and all the calendar, and it was visible physically in a big wall, right? So that openness of everybody seeing which projects are we working on was a good tool for that, for visibility, for transparency, and for aligning efforts in the same direction, right? So that is an example of a way where, and that is a thing more efficient, that only the management saying this, we're working on this, but the rest of the people doesn't know exactly what they're doing and why, and which part of the big landscape is part of, right?
In this setup, would you have said maybe at some point someone comes up with some additional initiative that was not on the board and he's executed it already? So it would be like a surprise, could be a positive surprise or good surprise, but maybe people weren't 100% open in what they've shared. They maybe had some side projects they didn't want to let everyone know about, or where they capture information. You see that a lot, like when you say in cultures, something is done, you're creating some facts, and once it's there, then basically you show it, because then also it's only operational. Before, those people would probably say there is no value in talking about it because we not even know if it works. And so shielding them a bit, sort of like also in case something fails and they don't get the full blame on it because no one knew they ever.
Yeah. Well, in my experience, that didn't used to happen. I maybe in other companies where they work with more, I don't know, sensitive information, they cannot openly say what they're working on, or maybe if they are working with competitors and they don't want the competitors to know what they're working on. Of course, you cannot do that completely open internally, because eventually it will leak. But I've never been in an environment with those characteristics, and so then I didn't have to tackle those cases much. Yeah.
And where would you say are the advantages over that information sharing versus a silo culture that you would probably have in more traditional firms, where everyone has clearly their departments and everything is kind of set and people have their own KPIs, and not necessarily benefit from sharing because they might even, in a business perspective, take some share of the other people, vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah. So we also suffer from that in everywhere. So I'm far from saying that we are perfect from that point of view. Of course, we still have silos, and it's in the human nature. Some people used to some people kind of is defensive or try to keep their knowledge close, so they feel more secure, and I understand why they do that. But I try to prevent that, because eventually, from my experience and as I see it, you can only be you can be more competitive when you are more cooperative, and you cannot cooperate with closed information in silos. So for me, the best, the clear outcome of an open culture is efficiency. So I think the more open you are, I'm not saying that it's 100% correlated, but I think the correlation between efficiency and how easily information flow and how common picture everybody has, I think probably there's a huge correlation on that. And also in a more natural way, because of course you can achieve efficiency with different strategies. There's probably, but probably you will need a very strong managing team, telling exactly everyone what to do to try to be absolutely efficient, right? But that requires a lot of effort, and maybe you don't have the proper resources or the amount of managing people that way. So in a more, let's say, less bossy environment, the more open it is, and the clearer is the information for everybody. I think it's more likely that you get more efficient outcomes. That's how I see it.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and I think creating that transparency, of course, historically has been task for many consultants, let's say on larger transformation programs, coming in, doing some analysis across different business units, providing sort of transparency that was not there before, to create maybe some management decisions. Do you see, like in that process, where would you see a role for consultants? Or maybe in the next 2-3 years, AI will completely create every, transparency in the organization, and we're all done.
Well, consultancy for me, it's a key role. Since the very moment you see things as an evolving creature, when things are evolving constantly, I think it's presumptuous to think that you know everything. You need to bring fresh knowledge from outside, and consultancy there is a key thing from my point of view. So knowing that you don't know enough, and there may be solutions that you cannot come up with, it's an important thing, and then consultancy there is it's a clear tool, right? And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
So you could, like I was saying, like, of course, historically consultants, as you say, they bring in the fresh knowledge. They also, of course, help internally with capacity to really work really dedicated on a certain project, creating some transparency, creating some options, evaluating certain options to move forward. And of course, in these days, you hear a lot around AI coming in, sitting on a lot of databases, monitoring conversations, synthesizing all that information into an overview. And of course, that overview might be the PMO at some point, like the program management office. So the question is a bit: would you see there any room in the next 2 or 3 years, or will AI basically become very good? And if the capabilities of AI will make consultants redundant, do you still see a demand for consultants in the future in the next 2 to 3 years?
I don't see why AI should change that at all. On the contrary, of course, AI is a very powerful tool. It's disruptive. We know that we're prone to, as human, to overestimate how it's going to be in the short run, and then underestimate how it's going to be in the long run. So probably in the short run it will change many things, but maybe not as, because you can hear some kind of crazy ideas what is going to happen in just 2 years, something like that. So I think AI, so of course, answering your question, yes, consultancy, I think all companies will need, for example, now it's very difficult to find proper consultancy regarding how to use AI properly, because it's so new that we are all learning together, right? So it's difficult to find that. But as it mature, so for example, now I see small firms knowing some tools very well. So knowing which tool use to everything, it's a superpower now, right? Because there are too many options. So in general, I see the approach to AI now more than ever. You need to be open to change and open to change the way you can do things. For example, um, even in cases that may be radical, that you have to renounce. Renounce is probably, you have to give up some part of your team, because that can be done through AI better, in a better way. Or you have to transform things radically, because otherwise you don't get to a point where your company can be competitive. So, for example, in the past, I had a situation where a person from my team approached, "Hey, look, they are requesting from the SEO team, the search engine optimization team. Hey, look, from this area, they're asking all the time requests." And then my question was, okay, what kind of request? All this, that, and that. Do they make sense, this request? Oh, I think so. Yeah. So then what's the problem in answering them? And then from that conversation it came, look, so maybe not only you should answer those requests, but it seems that your goals as a team are very aligned with this area. And so we eventually ended up moving that team from my area to a different area, because it seemed more aligned with what the company needed. And it was, those frictions were just the manifestation, the result of probably that we could improve how we were organized. So in the very moment we moved that team from an area to a different area, that thing started to roll better, right, with less friction. So in the same way, so I was not attached to that. It's not my team. I don't see it as my people. It's not my people. It's the company's people, right? So and we have to put them in the place where they are more useful, and we have to try to reorganize things the best way we can. So with AI, I see kind of the same thing, right? So you have to rethink how you do things. And if that implies managing people or giving some things up, again, the non-attachment thing is an important thing here. Then it's probably what the company needs to do, right?
Anders, thank you very much. If we think about the last 20, 25 minutes that we spoke now, we touched on a lot of topics, especially attachment. And you say, like, attachment, you shouldn't have any attachment, even with the new things like AI, just, do what is best for the company. If you were to give our listeners one advice, what they should consider after now listening to our discussion and the podcast, what would it be?
I don't know. I'm not the kind of give advisor, because I'm learning and changing ideas. I used to say strong ideas loosely held, right? So I don't know. I don't know. Good luck. Would it would be not the advice, but my wish for everybody.
So strong ideas, loosely held, with as little as attachment as possible, probably. Would that be it?
I don't know. Maybe that works for me, but for other people, the recipe is different. So there's no universal truths in this. The human being is a very complex organism, and what is good for me and my approach to life and to work may be good, but in other cases, the recipe can be completely different and completely okay, and no problem with that.
And that is probably a great closing word, because that's why we also explore so many different viewpoints in the Beyond Consulting podcast. Andres, thank you very much for being a part of the show today. And I wish you all the best. And once again, thank you very much for taking the time, and have a great day ahead.
Thanks for having me, Christian. See you.